Hey guys, just wanted to walk y'all through how to do a water pump on an Evinrude 250 HO G2. This is a 2019, model numbers 250 HLA AHA, I believe. But this should be really close to any G2, if not exactly the same. So we're gonna go through some parts and pieces and kind of go from there. All right, so first things first, we're gonna go through our parts. This boat has been ran on the Texas coast in back lakes and foot or less of water for its entire life thus far, so it's definitely past due. I'm probably 120 hours deep in it, and it definitely is not cooling the motor like it used to. As you can see, it's polished from sand and mud, and this boat runs almost on dry land. So anyway, we're gonna get to our parts. My part number for the boat is, for the water pump kit, 5009434, and that covers the 250 HO and I believe many other horsepower models, as long as it's the V6 3.4. But anyway, y'all just kind of go to boats, I think it's boats.net, and they have everything you need to dig up what pumps and parts and pieces you need. I also have a little bit of gasket maker, and this is the gasket sealant that they recommend. I know it says Loctite, not Evinrude, but it is the exact same. Part number 1525607, and that should take care of you. Some zip ties, a razor blade for cleaning gaskets, and I always have Corrosion X, because you know you're never always opening the panels on this, so when you're in there, it's a good idea just to kind of knock corrosion down, that kind of stuff, while you're there. So anyway, that's kind of a wrap up of that. You can tell I have all of my tools out. Also some Yamalube. You're definitely going to need some grease, so Yamalube's a good option for that, the marine grade grease. Tools, I just have everything out because I don't know exactly what I'm going to need yet. And a couple of sawhorses that I'm going to attempt to use to hold the lower unit once it's off to work on. So we'll see how that works out. Prop my phone up. We're going to go ahead and take off the side covers, which is a I guess they call it a 4mm metric Allen wrench. And the top cap where the oil is, where you load your oil. Go ahead and pull that off. And I've already loosened these, so now I just got to get it off of there. I think so. Yep. Oh yeah. Salt water's been doing a number on it, hence the Corrosion X. We'll lay this to the side. Repeat on the other side.
I can't see what I'm doing, but it's just a quarter turn or a half turn to the left with this Allen key to get the side covers off. Got it there. Here's the other side. We're at.
All right, so next thing is we need to take off the black plastic shroud there. What it is it's a T25 Torx, and these little black screws that run around here. You also have two screws here that are holding your lower unit fluid reservoir, which, let me grab the camera and I'll show y'all so you know what you're looking at. See the little fluid reservoir there? These two screws are holding that right here. So that's gonna have to come off, but I think I will do it after I remove these black screws right here.
Let's see what else we got. Looks like it's on there. Power pole's in the way. that off, apply slight pressure up, and it'll come off. There's two little hangers here. Now, to me, looks like I've got to take these off too. Try it now. Oop, we're getting there. Okay.
Looking at it, once I'm at this point, it's a good idea right here that you have your trim switch hooked up right there. So we'll go ahead and pull that, and then I have my lower unit bottle here, which is deeply concerning why it's empty, but we'll get to that when we get there. All right. Okay, let's see. All right. Here. Now, okay, so y'all are learning with me. It appears that I need to remove these to get the shroud off. So we'll do that and go from there. All right, so as you can see, I got the other side off, or this side rather. I just had to unbolt these little screws off of there. It's a 3/8 to remove these off of this little shroud to pull the side panel off. I don't know if that's the exact way to do it, but it worked for me. Now I'm going to take this other side off as well. That way we have full access and we're not having to stop in the middle of anything. And I'll get back to y'all. Same thing, T25s right there. All right, so I got both sides off. You kind of see what's going on. All right, obviously I'm going to take it to the car wash and spray some of this down, get all the corrosion off, and then hit it with some Corrosion X to try and halt some of this stuff. Anyway, Evinrude and all of their genius, I guess. I wish this was a hose clamp, but it is a crimp-on. So I'm gonna have to break this crimp-on off because I gotta get this bottle off of here to be able to fish the oil fill tube all the way through and down to the lower unit. So when I drop the lower unit, I can pull it out. So I will remove this clamp and I'll get back with y'all. All right, so as you can see, I got the bottle off. I had to basically break this clamp to get it off, but just be careful so you don't break the plastic. Now I have my free tube. I'm gonna stick a bolt in there. See if I got one that'll work. Probably not. Now I'm gonna have to go find like a 3/8 bolt. Basically the reason I'm doing that is I don't want any lower unit fluid running out while I'm working and making a mess. I am gonna do a lower unit change on it, but just for the sake of not making a huge mess, we'll put a bolt in there. Fun fact, these 4 screws you remove to take the side cover off from this that go right there. Fit perfectly upside down in that hole. All right, so next we remove this hose through this little grommet here. It's just foam. You're taking this out, and you can kind of see it. It just traces around through here and then back down. So this, it's like a little holder, a T holder in there. So I almost want to leave them zip tied together if I can. That way it stays together when I'm dropping it. You know, I don't have an extra set of hands helping me, so it may make it a little easier. All right, let's go to the other side. It appears this looks like the shift. Yeah, okay, so the cable that runs the electronic shifting in the lower unit, you can see it runs up out of there, wraps around through here, comes up, and up under here it terminates right there. So I'm gonna get that unhooked and I'll let y'all know if there's any tricks there. Okay, so as you can see, I unplugged it. All it is there's a little clip on the back side you can't see. Get your pinky in there or index finger, press it, and just give her a little pull. She comes right out, no big deal. Also, it is zip tied in there. So next thing I'm gonna do is take my pair of dikes and cut all these zip ties and get this line free. And also, I just wanna let y'all know I'm not a boat mechanic. I'm just, you know, I like to work on things. If you got any kind of mechanical knowledge, you'll be okay. It's just, you know, trying to figure it out as you go. But I hope this helps. All right, shift linkage is unrouted out of the motor. Just cut that zip tie right there, and it just pulls through, and then you got another zip tie here you cut, and just fish it all the way out. But she's unhooked, and I'm gonna make sure they're free, and we'll drop down this and the oil fill for the lower unit, and we'll go ahead and drop the lower unit and see how it goes. All right, what y'all missed there, I got all of these free and realized I could not get to these lower unit bolts without pulling my cap plate off. So thanks Shallow Sport. Works great, but not very good for doing lower unit maintenance. But anyway, we got those off. We're gonna start pulling these bolts and I'll get back with y'all. All right, so also got to thinking, if I'm dropping a lower unit, I really don't want this prop on there cutting me and all that good stuff. So just remove your anodizer here and it should just come off. Well, I'm gonna have to work with it, but I'll get back to you once the prop's off. All right, prop is off. Oh, what these look to be is a 15 millimeter. I'm just gonna use this little ratcheting speedy wrench. You can use whatever you got. And I will take these off and let you know what's next. Okay, so I removed all the 15 millimeter nuts. All that's left are these studs. The lower unit is holding itself in place. So I don't know if y'all's will do that or not, but mine is. So basically, I'm waiting on my wife to get here to assist me with running these out and through so I don't hang up on the way out. You know what I mean? So we'll set the camera up when we're dropping it and we'll go from there. All right, so I thought I had all the bolts and completely overlooked these two. So just a heads up, don't forget those. So I'll loosen those and we'll go from there.
Nope. Get. Cool.
Okay, let's try it again. Feeding them. All right. with me. All right, success. It was just wedged on there. We got her off though. As you can see, it's a 2-piece shaft. My sawhorse idea seems to be working. I don't think it's going anywhere. 2-piece shaft right here, which is on that. Shaft's off. And this is why you grease all of these splines, is because if it was not greased, man, talk about a nightmare getting that off. So I will go ahead and get this camera set back up where I can work with 2 hands and go to town. Y'all stay tuned. All right, so I want to walk y'all through this before I move the camera away a little bit. First thing you want to do is cut this zip tie. Just gives you more access in there, kind of get stuff out of the way. So here we go, get that oil hose out of there. Next thing you're going to want to do is with this 2-piece shaft with it in, turn it. I already did it, I didn't get it on camera, but grab it, turn it counterclockwise, and you'll just feel it release. You'll feel a little click, and it'll give you about 1/8 a turn. That feels really free, and that's unlocking the key inside the impeller. So that way when you go to pull it all apart, it's ready to remove. So like I said, grab it, just give it a 1/8 of a turn counterclockwise, and you'll feel it release. So go ahead and take your 2-piece shaft back off, set it over here on my buddy's boat. Don't let him know I'm getting grease on his boat. And we'll go to town. We're gonna take these 4 bolts off here, 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 and here, and remove the housing, and we'll see what's up. I want to show y'all what I'm using to clean it up. It's this kind of plastic wire wheel. It's not wire, it's like plastic, so you don't damage the metal. But as you can see, that little spot I've done shining back at us compared to the rest of it is much better. So don't be afraid to use a little plastic brush like that on there, and it'll clean it up real nice and not damage anything. So let me get it finished cleaning up, and I'll pick back up. All right, so as y'all can see, we got her all cleaned up and shiny. This just goes to show why they want you to use gasket sealer. If you look over here, that baiting surface is not perfect. It's got little indentions and bumps and stuff. So that is why you use gasket sealer when you're mounting this housing on. But we'll get to that as we go along. All right, so next we're going to use our Loctite that I showed y'all earlier. Part number 1525607, aviation gasket sealant. So you can tell this stuff is nasty, and we're going to take, let's see if I get some off of there. What we're going to do is brush it onto the mating surface here. So give her a good brush, and don't worry if you get some where it's not supposed to. It's all part of it. Be pretty generous with it, because you want this gasket to really bond to it. Let's see here. It is messy, so just be prepared. What you don't want any water squirting out from your water pump housing and making all this hard work for nothing. Okay, come on. You can be very generous with it. Okay, got that on. I'm gonna come over and grab my gasket, which is right here. And it only goes on one way. So we'll come back over. Look at our layout here. Looks to me like it goes this way. And they have these 2 little guides here. to help you line her up. So just kind of pat her down on there, and that gasket sealant will hold it in place for you. Next, we're going to take our brush again, do another layer on the outside of this gasket. If I can do it without making a huge mess. And just get her good to go. Now it's going to be impossible not to have little runs and stuff like that, so just try and pick them up as you go, just so we don't have a bunch of that stuff in the lower unit. But once again, you're not going to hurt anything. It's just more for me. Next, we take our plate, and it only goes on there one way. So let's see, it looks like that to me. Yep. So you see I got my 2 guide pins with the little holes here matching up. We'll slide her down, just line her up on the guides. Easy as that. All right, go pause it. All right, so you see I greased my plate. You always want to grease that so when you start it, you don't have any dry rubber on metal contact. Next thing is when you take your old one off, don't take it apart. It's a good point of reference to how your tabs are pointed. These little rubber tabs are pointing, and kind of how it goes in there. I have this silver cup all filled up with grease, smeared around to make the dry fire easy and easier installation. Problem is my hands are greasy now, so I'm gonna try to be stubborn and get this thing to cooperate. Okay, there's one. Okay. And I will probably speed this up because there's no awesome way to do this. Okay, so once you get them started, just kind of work each tab in, rotating the direction that they're going to be pointing. As you can see, I'm working it. Okay, so now that we're here, you just kind of work them, each one, like that. And then, oh, she's hanging up right there. That's okay. Get it past it, like that. Okay, I think, yeah, good to go. So as you notice, they're both facing the same way. Very important, have these points pointing or clockwise, you know. And we'll go from there. All right, so next you have the thinner, larger O-ring, and all I've done is coat it in grease. Helps dry rotten and helps hold it. And inside your new cap, there's a groove there. You just set it in there, and that grease will actually help hold it in place. There we go. So now that that's done, they recommend you take your completed housing and your outside housing, actually, before I get that far. Next step is your water pump thermostat housing gasket maker, 22071 by Permatex. And you're going to want to line your groove for this outer gasket. That way you get a good seal. So you got to work quick, but take it. Don't be bashful. Just try to keep it out of the housing, but it's not going to make or break if you get a little in there, because this is not where the water pump's actually turning. And you see I'm just kind of running a bead just like you were caulking a window or something in that groove. Okay, so once you have that, take this long gasket that's shaped. Do not bend it, force it, just be gentle. And it looks like it goes this way, so we're just gonna set her in there. And yep, all the way around. And you're not forcing it, keep that in mind. You just want to work it in to its little groove there. Once you have it there, then you can give her a little more pressure, make sure it's seated. That way you don't bind it when you're tightening, and you're going to have some of that gasket maker come out when you're forcing this in, but that's okay. Main deal is just getting it in there. So now I'm going to take this gasket sealer and just kind of smooth it out over the top, and that will help that seal up properly. All right, so now we come over and we get our O-ring and our new key right here, and that we were using earlier. And they want you to seal or paint it on the inside of your new water pump housing. So we'll take a little bit of that, smear it in there. And I think the reason they do this is to keep that housing from spinning or kind of clacking back and forth, so you don't get vibrational wear and tear on the plastic itself. So now we got that there. Okay, put that in there. Take our new water pump and slide her in. There's little tabs. There's 2 tabs on this that line up with 2 holes inside there. So set her down in there. Give her a little in. Okay, we're gonna try again. This time I have the O-ring below the key as kind of holding it up as opposed to on it, and we'll try it that way. Let's see what we get. And no dice. We'll put a little grease on this key and maybe help hold it to the shaft itself. This by far is the most pain part I think I've had so far. So if this is the worst of it, I think we're doing okay. All right, try it again. This time the O-ring is around the key, and I'm just gonna work down. Using maybe a flathead. There we go. So what I did is I looked down there and I used a flathead to help prop the key up until I could work the housing onto the key. That is the trick. So now just rotate her. That's the ticket right there. Yep. All right, it's on. We're gonna grab our 4 bolts that came with the kit. Shiny new bolts. We're gonna put this sealant on them. Basically, you just want to get any point of exit for water around bolts, all that stuff. Whoop, that's not good. Okay, there's one. Two. Three. That one's nasty. All right, we had to cut right there because I dropped one of the bolts in the sand, and unfortunately sand is not good for metal. So lube up the last bolt with that gasket sealer, the Loctite stuff, and I'm just going to kind of get them started here. Once I get that, we'll grab our impact with the 5/16 and we'll go nice and easy in a star pattern, so you don't want to over torque one way or the other. I'm just going till snug. I'm not going crazy on it. Come back to the other side, we'll give her a bump. Come back to this, bump. Come back to this, bump. Come back to this, bump. All right, so I got to thinking after I snugged it with the impact, I'm gonna take an 8mm wrench or a 5/16 wrench, just so I can feel how tight we actually are. Feels good. Feels good. Good. So now that the water pump housing is all put together, I have my little pick here. And if you come over and look, this shaft, this little tube here has 2 O-rings on it right there. I'm going to take those off with the pick and replace them with the supplied O-rings from the kit. And once again, it's a plastic tube, so you know, if this stuff's been in there a while, don't get too violent with it. Be asking for trouble. All right, got my 2 new O-rings right here, and just work them on. There we go. O-rings on, ready to go. So next, got the O-rings on the motor. We're going to grease these splines up and just be, you could be a total mess with it. You won't hurt anybody's feelings. This is very, very important to grease this, especially any of these bolts in this motor. A lot of times they're different metals, and especially in salt water, you put 2 different metals together, you're going to speed up that process of corrosion. So we just want to make sure we're good and in there. All that grease is good to go. And now, grabbing the 2-piece shaft, I'm going to put it on there. And you just got to feel for it. When she's there, she's there. Okay. 2-piece shaft on there. I can get some of that excess and use it on the top. And we're just lubing this shaft here, no pun intended. That. All right, so now it's time to stab the lower unit. I'm gonna grab it off my sawhorses. My wife is gonna help me with the cords, hoses, whatever you want to call them. Okay, walk with me. Let's go this way. So remember, they go through the that square hole. So go ahead and feed the shift cable first, your longer cable first. There you go.
I go through where?
That little square.
Here?
Yep. definitely going to need 2 hands to do this, guys, so make sure you have someone on standby ready to go. Here, hold on, make sure they're not twisted. Let me see this one. There you go. Okay, now that she's got those started, we're going to tilt the lower unit down. Here, that didn't work, so we're going to rotate it a little and send her back in. There we go. Okay, that's seated. Hold it in place. It's okay, it's lower unit fluid. I'm doing that too. Alright, you can turn loose. Okay, it's back on. What I had to do is pull it back out slightly and tweak the shaft just to get the splines to line up internally. Once I got it there, you just give it good pressure and it'll go great. Next, 15 millimeter. And what I'm going to do is suck up the back. So the way the motor is right now, the whole thing's wanting to close up the top. So I need to shut this back down. So I'm going to go 1, 2. Here we go. Tighten these up. And I'm not going full tight yet. I'm just snugging them. Then I'll come up here to the front. Do the same thing. Not going full tight yet, don't forget. And just work your way around, kind of doing a star pattern. You know, you don't want to do one side more or whatever. So I'm just kind of randomly hitting these. Now just note, if yours were anything like mine, they were not crazy tight. Maybe 20 foot-pounds, which is like snug and then a quarter turn. Sometimes I like to just let it set for a second and let that bind get off, those washers compress, and hit it again. Especially salt water, there's a bunch of corrosion and stuff. So you don't want to think it's fully tight and it just be compressing corrosion or sand or whatever. All right, and just like that, lower unit's back on. All right, so fun fact, when you're dressing this back in, getting the zip ties back where they were, that one back there is super hard to get to. But what you can do is actually pull it out. It's just a little compression deal. Run your zip tie through, mount it about where the old impression was here, and push it back in, and you're done. All right, so as you can see, we got it retied, zip tied here. One zip tie holds them both through that little hole there behind the T. Bring it up, around, over and through, under this, back up, zip tie holding them both, up, and see there's a little slot right there to slide it in there, run it up, in between your intake, I think that's the exhaust actually, in between the exhaust and this front cover, run it up through there. That zip tie trick I showed y'all, right there, it's zip tied it in, plug her back in, shift cable's done. All right, your oil fill line, same thing, supported. Run it around in between your oil tank and the grommet. And it wasn't zip tied originally, but there is a slot there, and the more support I can add to that, I'm not going to complain. So I went ahead and zip tied it to that slot. Cut my excess here. Zip tied there, comes under through here, get that focus, up through the foam, and there it sits. Now what I did is I went to my marine store down the street and bought a stainless steel hose clamp to replace the one I removed. And other than that, that is essentially the lower unit. All the panels and stuff, I mean, I'll video it, but I don't know if I'm gonna add it in here. Just put them on the way he took them off. Beyond that, I'll get a video of it running and we'll go from there. Only reason I'm not putting it all back on yet is I'm gonna go ahead and do lower unit fluid and that fuel filter there, the water separator, while I got all this stuff off. Not a bad idea to go ahead and do it all, you know? All right.